I just think it's like a bit snobbish. I don't know if that's the right word, but to assume that these people should have to do their research on us because they like our hair or our music or whatever.
You can't sit with us!
What's up, idols? It's CC Lesson 3. Welcome back to my channel. So I gotta say, after posting the part 1 of this cultural appropriation K-pop slash I guess blackface sort of thing, I am pleasantly surprised from the comments and the reaction I've gotten from the video so far, because I gotta say I was up like hours before, like at 5 a.m. debating and still editing and wondering if I should upload this, because part of me was like, yo, this is gonna ruin me. Like, I'm gonna lose subscribers, I'm gonna make people mad, because topics like this are difficult to talk about, but I'm trying to be more understanding instead of just angry. Like, that doesn't really help anybody. And like I said, I feel like I've grown a lot after like living abroad and being in other cultures, and like understanding that not everything comes from a place of hate. Like, some of it is literally ignorance, and it's that simple. So after reading some of these comments, I figured today would be more like a response video. So one of the first things I want to say is I noticed from the comments that a lot of people were definitely mixing my words in the video. By the way, first of all, I should actually say this. A few months back, I did a whole video about black hair, like why we straighten it, why we wear wigs and weaves and all that stuff. So if you guys aren't really familiar with where I stand on that issue, then I will put that here, because I went in depth about that. So like, I'm not making excuses for the discrimination and the hate we face for our hair. I'm just saying the same things that we're fighting for is what I'm trying to like convey. Like, if we're saying we should be able to wear our hair any way we want without being kicked out of school or not hired, then non-black people should be able to do the same thing without being racist or deemed hateful against us, you know what I mean? So yeah, what I'm trying to defend is the same thing that we're mad about. Like, we should all be able to wear whatever hair we want. Anyway, so to talk more about like appropriation itself, I remember once upon a time when it was perfectly okay, for example, for Halloween, to go out and dress up as whatever you wanted to and not be seen as a racist or appropriating culture. It's weird how social media kind of allowed for this to change, because when I was like 6, I dressed up as, I don't know if it's more appropriate to say a Native American or an American Indian, so I'll probably use that interchangeably in this video. But yeah, I had the face paint, I had the headdress, I had feathers and stuff. It was okay to do that back then, but now I saw this story where a white woman and had a daughter who dressed up as Moana for Halloween, and that was considered cultural appropriation. Social media dragged the mom for that. Like, these days you have to dress up as like a character from your same ethnicity, your same race, your same culture, your same belief, your same religion, otherwise it's appropriation. So like, when I dressed up as an American Indian or a Native American, like, again, I'm not sure the proper terminology, was I appropriating culture as a 6-year-old who just thought it looked nice and wanted to wear it for Halloween? Let me know in the comments, did I appropriate culture as a 6-year-old girl? Like, sometimes imitation is really the most sincerest form of flattery. I wasn't trying to appropriate, I just liked how it looked. I remember back in like 2004 and 2005 watching movies like White Chicks, where you had 2 black men who dressed up as white women, and it was funny. Like, I don't recall white people being upset about it. I'm sure there were, you know, people mad about it. Or like watching the Chappelle Show, where he would put like this white powder over him, and he was a white news anchor and his name was like Chad or something. He was like, my God, like the way he talked would change. You could not get away with that stuff today. I just feel like we're losing our sense of humor, you know? So anyway, back to more of the comments, because like I said, I kind of wanted to like use this video to like respond to some stuff. So I saw a comment from an Asian guy who said, he made a really good point. He said, what did he say? He was saying how black people are really quick to call out racism when it's against us, when people are like trying to mock us or act like yo 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 and all this stuff. But like, when it happens, when it's us doing it to other people, it's funny, it's just a joke and it's okay. Like, I will never forget this. This was back in like 2000, like January-ish of like 2015. It was really cold outside, and I had a Korean roommate. She was of Korean descent, but like adopted in America as a baby, so very much like Americanized. We all went to a club. We were going to New York City to go to this club. We were all in the subway and like followed by these black dudes who kept doing like that slanty eye thing and saying, oh, she gonna love me long time, like following this girl trying to sound Asian, and they're laughing, and she's just looking at us like can y'all like stop? Like he's like, no man, we just playing, like what y'all up to? Like, oh, she gonna love me long time or no? Like just, but they didn't see anything wrong with it because they were just joking. And like clearly my friend was very upset by this and uncomfortable. So like that comment said, if a black person, for example, does like an Asian voice, then it's just a joke, it's funny. But if it's vice versa, it's racist and we should be just outraged. And I'm not trying to say all black people do this. Like I do feel like culturally black people get more of like a pass when it comes to racial sensitivity jokes and stuff. Like we are allowed to say stuff like white people tripping, white people do this. But if a white person said, yo, black people do this and black people do that, then they get fired. Like I get, it's probably more of a pass like because of our racial struggle and the history in this country. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is like, from my perspective as an American, I am blessed to have people who watch from many different countries. So I don't know if what I'm saying fully applies to you. This is just my perspective from America. I think one of the main things I wanted to talk about in this video though is like the comment I've gotten the most, like the most repetitive one, is people saying, oh, non-black people love our culture, but they don't love us. I feel like we can't necessarily assume that to be the case, especially in countries where they don't really have a lot of black people. Like they don't get the chance to show or to learn or to know anything about us aside from what they see in the media. Like I know they have their assumptions and stereotypes of how they think black people are, but if we're not around to show them any different, then how else would they know? And people are like, oh, they can do their research. Like, I don't understand why we expect non-black people to do research on us to appreciate our culture and our music. Also, keep in mind, if you live in like a very homogenous country where you're around people who look exactly like you and speak the same language, I'm not sure how you expect these people to have access to the same resources and information on what's not their own culture. You know what I mean? Like in China, for example, they have, you know, they don't have access to like Facebook or YouTube or Google. Everything has to be like government funded or government approved. Now it's not like that in Korea. You can pretty much Google whatever you want, but who's to say that with translation issues and translation errors that they would get proper, accurate information on us? They might have some Korean dude who decided to write a website. He spent like 2 years in New York City and he's like, I'm an expert on black culture. And he decides to publish a blog about black people. Who's to say? They did their research, but who's to say that information would be accurate? You know what I mean? Like in the Western world, we don't really have to think too much about that, because in America, for example, we can learn firsthand from different people in different cultures. We have Hispanic people, black people, Asian people, Indian people, whatever, whoever. Like we have access to that because we're more diverse, we're more of a melting pot. We can find resources about Indian culture written by Indians. We can find resources on white people abundantly written about by white people. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like a weird thing to assume that they should do their research on us. For me, I don't see how that's realistic. Like when we're around people who have those different backgrounds, it makes it easier for us to learn from them and about them. Like don't get me wrong, I expect a Korean person to maybe occasionally Google their favorite rapper because they want to know more about him, or like where they came from, how old they are, what got them started, period, whatever. Like we Google small things that I'm trying to figure out how to word this, what we're interested in if we want to learn more. Like it doesn't have to be so in-depth, you know what I mean? Like I don't expect them to Google black people in cornrows because they want to wear the hairstyle. But like if I want to Google Kendrick Lamar because I love Kendrick Lamar, then that's one thing. But like liking one black rapper, or 10 for that matter, doesn't mean you have to know about all black people. And then people say, oh, but Korea has the fastest internet in the world. It's really not that much faster. That's kind of a weird excuse or point that I've been seeing people make in comments about videos like this too. Like, oh, we live in 2020. The whole not being able to do research thing isn't a valid argument. They have the fastest internet in the world. And you guys may or may not know this, but like Korean people are already very much overworked with school. They have extensive studies even outside of school at Hagwons, for example. You really expect them to want to take time on top of all that to Google black people?
No.
Like I was a hardcore Tokyo Hotel fan back in the day, They're a German like punk rock band for those who probably don't know. But like I didn't start Googling German people. I didn't start Googling the history or the country. I did start to learn a little bit of the language so I could sing along to the songs. But I like a German rock band. That doesn't mean I need to know all things about German people. Like aside from what I learned from German history in school, I know nothing. And it's the same with like anime, for example. I love anime. I love Japanese food. My trip to Tokyo was amazing, but I don't know much about the culture or the people. Like I can appreciate things without having to be an expert, you know what I mean, or familiar. I can't name one Japanese social issue right now. My point is not taking the time to do extra research into someone's culture or background. That does not make you a disrespectful or racist person. And then like the other part of this argument where it's they love to profit off of and appropriate black culture, but they still don't love us and appreciate us, or my culture isn't a trend. But like this isn't unique to black people or black culture. Like a bad example, because I don't know much about Chinese culture, but I remember back in like 2006 when everybody was wearing those little Chinese slippers. I remember tribal and native prints became popular and everybody started wearing feather earrings, feathers in their hair. I remember when it was popular to wear kimonos during the summer, like over a crop top and some high-waisted jeans. Like kimonos are Japanese. It's not just a black thing for someone's culture to become a trend, because it happens to a lot of other cultures. People wear all sorts of things because it's trendy or it's popular or it's selling. They don't know the cultural significance or the cultural importance, but that doesn't make you like a bad, disrespectful, racist person. I even partook in the Chinese slipper trend and wearing kimonos and wearing feathers in my hair and on my earrings, but I don't know, like I'm sure I'm not the only black person who's partaken? What's the past tense of partake? Participated in these trends. But if cornrows happen to be popular, or dreadlocks, or locks, however you want to call it, happen to be popular and a non-black person wears it, then we're upset. And don't get me wrong, if there are non-black people who are actively saying black people are ghetto, black people are stupid, black people are this, but these cornrows though, I'm gonna rock these cornrows, that's totally different, and that's like not the case 99.9% of the time anyway. I don't know, I just think it's like a bit snobbish. I don't know if that's the right word, but to assume that these people should have to do their research on us because they like our hair or our music or whatever.
You can't sit with us!
Like I said, for me, I listened to like K-pop since like 2010. I started watching dramas back in like 2014, but I didn't actually do any research into the country or the people until I knew I was going to live there, because I didn't want to be disrespectful or offend anyone, and I wanted to know more about my surroundings. For the average Korean, for example, who plans to live the rest of their life in Korea, why would they necessarily have to Google black people if they're not going to be around black people? And you know, like I said in the last video, K-pop is becoming more global, so I'm sure idols and people who spend more time abroad will definitely look into doing more research, or definitely start to do more research. But for the average person who doesn't spend their time around people of different cultures and different backgrounds, there's no reason to know the history, and that's not disrespectful to not know. And then I saw this comment where a girl said they should ride for us and be up to date on our social issues, and they should know about Ahmaud Arbery, for example. The thing with that is, how do we expect people from overseas to know about what happened with Ahmaud Arbery when we just learned 2 weeks ago about his murder, which happened like 2 months ago? You know what I mean? Like, if you like K-pop, I don't expect you to necessarily have to know Koreans' personal social issues within their society. And like, yeah, you do get that occasional story that goes international and makes international news, like how Muslims and blacks are mistreated in some parts of China. That's the only thing that comes to mind now. But like every now and then you do get that news story that picks up global traction. But like for example, it wasn't really like news, like a nationwide or international news story, but just an example. Back like 2 years ago when, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I don't really know much about him, but XXXTentacion, when he was murdered, Koreans at this one club I go to, Sabotage, were outraged. Like, he was on all the monitors saying RIP, justice for him. Like, people care without having to overtly show and actively display that we care, you know what I mean? I just feel like if someone who's not black, as long as they're not actively hindering our progress or contributing to the problem, then there is no problem. Wearing cornrows or listening to hip hop or wanting to be more tan for that matter because you like how black people look isn't hindering us. So like, why is it a problem? Instead of constantly saying that like non-black people should do their research and they should know better, actually, you know what? Okay, how about this? Say a non-black person does do all the research, they meet all your criteria for their bachelor degree. How do you necessarily know that? And is that less offensive suddenly if they want to start wearing cornrows or locks? Say you're going on a trip to Hong Kong or something, I don't know, and you see a Chinese man walking down the street wearing cornrows. Are you gonna like approach him and ask him if he knows why he's wearing that hairstyle? So if someone does their research, does that make wearing locks, wearing braids, liking hip hop, dressing more like a black person, does that make it suddenly less offensive? When I was 6 and I decided to dress up as an American Indian, if I did my research first, would that be any less offensive? I don't get the do your research first. Like, what does that really help? As long as you're not actively being racist or actively slowing down progress or actively getting in the way, then there's no problem to me. Instead of this whole they should do their own research thing, sometimes if you want people to learn, you gotta be the one to teach. If you're watching this, I assume you watched part 1. There was a little part I did towards the end where I was like, is this appropriation or not? Or like, is this offensive or not? And it was funny in the comments seeing how the examples I used of Nicki and Beyonce, there was more of a gray area and more excuses could be made. Like for the Nicki example, I used, you know, the Your Love music video where she's dressed like a Japanese geisha. And Nicki did say that like she has a Japanese grandmother or something. That may or may not be true. But the point is people were making more excuses for that. So like say a Korean dude's like, oh, my grandfather's black. Is it okay for them to you know, act black or claim that they're black? You know what I mean? Like people are iffy about what they allow exceptions for and make excuses for. So for example, how about this one? Nicki Minaj did that song Chung Li. Chung Li is a fictional Chinese fighting character from Street Fighter, but the point is she wore Chinese attire. She's never claimed to be Chinese, so is that appropriation? Or like the Beyonce one I used, she wore like a traditional Indian or like Hindi garb. Again, I don't know the terms, I'm not trying to be offensive, I just don't know. So people were saying, oh, but she may or may not have known the research, or she may or may not have known the culture behind it. But with the non-black examples I showed, people in the comments were making a lot more room for gray areas when it came to the black people examples I gave. But with the non-black people, it was straight up appropriation or offensive or racist. Like, it's kind of funny how that happens. It seems like black people started to agree that black people just somehow don't or can't appropriate culture, which again, that's interesting to me. Any and everything that is popular or making money or trendy is gonna be copied and duplicated for a profit. It's not just, it doesn't happen to just black people. Whether it's food, fashion, music, travel, brands, etc. People are gonna try to copy it and duplicate it and profit off of it without necessarily knowing the background of what they're wearing or copying or doing. Another interesting comment I saw, because in my last video about this topic, I mentioned twerking and how it's like perceived to be African culture, because I myself don't even fully know the origins. I've heard people from the Caribbean say it's theirs, and I've heard people from Africa say it's theirs, and then I've heard African people say, well, people from the Caribbean originated in Africa, so it's ours. But that's a rabbit hole I'm not about to go down, because technically all human life started in Africa. So does that mean that all human culture is African? Like, that's just, I'm not going to do that. Like, culture is established as we migrate and settle. So who's to say that a bunch of Africans moved to the Caribbean or were brought there, slavery, and over time established twerking? I don't know. It might actually be African, it might be Caribbean, it might be both in their own different ways. My point is, I didn't want to say it was African culture because I don't know. So this girl said she will always be, in the comments, she said she'll always be upset when she sees a white woman twerking and profiting off of it and not knowing the spirituality behind it and the real original reason that African women would twerk. And like, not for nothing, I'm not sure who she was upset with in that comment, because black women are the ones who started twerking as not a spiritual thing anymore. Like, it's more of a raunchy sexy thing to do, and black women profit off of it as well. Whether they're like a dancer, or they're on Instagram as like an Instagram model, or in a music video, or a stripper, whatever the case is, black women have started the trend of twerking, and there's no spirituality behind it. And I'm not sure who made twerking more mainstream, but I don't really see the possibility or the likelihood of them knowing cultural or religious significance of it before they started doing it in the cameras for views and money. And like, it's not like white women went to the Caribbean or to Africa and said,
this twerking looks interesting,
and sparked this twerking movement around the world. So I'm not sure who she was upset with over that one, but like saying, oh, white women, when they profit off of twerking, it makes me mad, but because they don't know the cultural significance behind it,
you can't sit with us!
Well, why is it okay for black women to do it? Because I'm sure they don't know the cultural, I surely don't, I can speak for myself, but I doubt when you see girls, black girls, twerking in the club, twerking on camera, I doubt it's for religious and spirituality. Another point of this I'd like to make, I saw a comment from an African man who was like, oh, y'all about to be mad at me. He said that he laughs when he sees like African Americans wearing dashikis because they actually came from the Netherlands. Like, people from the Netherlands gave it to Africans. So he said it's not actually a part of black culture or African culture. Another one I saw a lot of was the Vikings example with the locks comment, or the locks comparison that I made. But that was just one example, because there are histories of there's history of Egyptians, and I know that's in Africa, but that's Northern Africa. Africa's a big continent. There are different ethnic groups all over it. Germans wore locks, Mayans wore locks, Indians wore locks, Native Americans wore locks. Like, it's not just ours. So how are we gonna be mad and claim it and be like, you can't wear that because that's ours? Like, this comment said that Vikings only had locks because they couldn't groom their hair. Black people do it because of a cultural significance. Who's to say why Vikings wore locks? There were cavemen who wore locks. Other cultures, everybody has a reason for doing what they want with their hair. Like, that's like the bottom line to this whole thing. But the comment also said like, locks are part of our black active struggle. Again, if a non-black person is wearing locks, that doesn't hinder progress or contribute to the struggle. Like, for me growing up, I know I used to wear box braids and cornrows because it was convenient. It was like a way to keep my hair up without using heat tools or hot tools. I don't think my mom sat down and thought about doing locks because of cultural significance to my people or religious significance to my people. It's just like a style we wear. And not for nothing, like, this is a point that I definitely want to make in this video. Black people definitely clown and degrade each other and exclude each other just as much as other races do. Let me leave the house with my hair not done even once. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be a black person who tells me I look like a crackhead, or I look like a runaway slave, or my edges aren't laid. Like, it's black people who say this to each other a lot of the time. Those prison braids, you need your hair done, boy. These are things I've heard black people say to each other and joke and tease and clown each other about. We judge each other so much, but we get so angry when it happens from other races. And even in the black hair video that I made, we still carry a lot of massive traditions of light skin good, dark skin bad, and that's colorism, and that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother video. I'm already talking too much in this one. We call each other nappy headed. We say, oh, she got the good hair, I got that good hair, I'm mixed so I got good hair. We do this to each other, and we say this about ourselves. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, is that your real hair? And if I say yes and they don't believe me, they want to feel my scalp and root me. Like, that's happened to me before. Like, we hinder ourselves, we get in our own way. I saw this post on the Shade Room about what should be a celebrated musical milestone for black people, because Doja Cat featuring Nicki Minaj was like #1, and then Meg Thee Stallion and Beyonce was like #2 on the Billboard charts, and that's like the first time in history 2 black women have been top in 2 different spots. I forgot the stat of it, but what distracted me the most was in the comments, suddenly people were saying, oh, Doja Cat's not black, she's half white, or Nicki is like other, she's all this other stuff. Beyonce's mom is Creole, so she's not actually black, which is so interesting because I've never heard anybody say Obama wasn't black, or Drake's not black, or J. Cole's not black,
etc.
Instead of celebrating, they were in the comments arguing about who is and who's not black. So what was funny is I posted my frustration on my Instagram story about this, and lately I've been on like Bumble BFF trying to meet people in the area because I don't really know too many people here yet. So I've been talking with this Asian girl, and what's funny is she saw me like, oh my gosh, like instead of celebrating this like cool thing for black people, why are people trying to claim that they're not black, and why is this a debate? Why are they arguing about this? Her seeing that post naturally assumed that it was white people. Like she said something like, the white people, the mean ones in parentheses, they hate to see you guys succeed and they hate to see you guys progress. I'll show you the comment on the screen, but like what was funny is when I told her, oh no, my young woke one, make no mistake, this is black people saying this about each other. She was like,
wait, what?
Like why? So like that just goes to show you, like, we do this to ourselves, bruh. Then she was like, wait, is it like because they're too light to be considered black? Like what is it? And I'm like, I honestly don't know.
You can't sit with us!
But like the real issue, if there is one in this milestone, is the fact that colorism is like clearly a thing, because what do these 4 black women have in common? They're very, very light-skinned. And if there's anything or any type of discussion to be had, it would be that, not them not being black enough to be considered black. I can't think of like one successful dark-skinned female rapper. There was Lil' Kim, but then she became light-skinned. Again, I'm sorry, that's another video. I'm not going down that rabbit hole in this one. Anyway, my point is, we seem to have a hard time accepting each other. So how do we expect other races and other communities to accept us when we don't accept ourselves? We debate, exclude, degrade each other. So like maybe we should fix our own identities, insecurities, communities, whatever, before we worry about what everybody else is doing. If anything, all of this to me is like a step forward, because once upon a time, wearing braids, locks, twists, afros, whatever, were deemed unattractive and ghetto and like undesirable. But now people want to wear these hairstyles. I feel like that's progress. It sucks that it took so long, and it sucks that we were even in a place where it was, ooh, your hair looks, we're not gonna hire you because your hair is an afro.
We're gonna need you to cut off those locks if you want to be hired or if you want to be part of this company.
You can't wear those box braids if you want to go to school, sweetie.
It sucks that that happens. Like people wear it as a sign of admiration, and it might not be it may not be in the most respectful way, but it's what they know. It's all they can do from their limited experience and knowledge of black people, you know what I mean? And again, the whole just Google and research us thing is really absurd. Like, you know better from experience than you do from reading online. Like, that's just facts. Like 9.9 times out of 10, the reason people copy stuff is because they think it looks cool and they like it. And why should we be offended by that? Not most of us were around to experience this firsthand, but seeing stuff that says only whites, no non-blacks or whatever, was hurtful. Like, that was very wrong. So it's hypocritical to kind of say the same thing, like, if you're not black then you can't wear this, you can't do this, you can't like this. How is that any better or any different? Like, if a white woman approached you and said,
oh, you're not allowed to have blonde hair.
and I'm sure that's happened before because there are Karens everywhere in the world, but is that right?
No.
Then why is it okay for us to do the same thing to non-blacks? Michelle Obama said it best, when they go low, you go high. So I think I'm done now. That's like most of the points that I wanted to cover in this video. So I hope this was helpful or informative. Again, thank you guys so much for watching the first one and not hating me for it because I was really scared. So yeah, if there are any other topics you guys want me to cover, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching if you did. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Annyeong.